All right, welcome everyone. We're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we're here for Noragami,
Season 2, Episode 7.
All right, we're back to the episodes proper.
Yep, exactly.
Okay,
the OVAs are done.
All right.
All the hilarious hijinks and misadventures that happened during that time are done with.
Yeah, they might get referenced back to in some way, but it is going to be interesting to see if this was basically the point to bring them in because of some kind of time skip transition.
Sure.
Or just introduction of a new arc of story, given that everything that went on with Bishamon, Kazuma, and just the whole clan in general seems to be basically over.
We've got Nora's dad, and also, internal affairs, potentially, for God stuff.
Yeah, potentially some kind of council thing being
regulatory
kind of thing that the OVAs were hinting at,
Committee. Yeah.
Yeah. Could be interesting. They're probably going to investigate things with what's going on with Bishamon if they are a thing at all.
That would be probably
that could
likely.
Be interesting to see if anything leads back to
Yato.
Yeah. So, y'all, without further ado, let's get into this. All right, everyone, now be sure to go check out the reaction portion of the video in the description below, then come back here for the discussion. All right, back to the show proper, and they are setting up a lot of new things. Ebisu, our current initial potential threat here.
Right, because he's got the masks in his office. Now,
and he is looking to purchase Yukine because he's an Imperial Regalia, which is interesting because what I think they're getting at here is that the act of what Yukine did turned him into an Imperial Regalia. However,
he got a power boost. But
but even though he wouldn't necessarily be Yato's Regalia, he would still be an Imperial Regalia.
Exactly, right. Because
that's important to kind of keep in mind.
Yeah, his efforts in supporting, the god that he served were rewarded.
He evolved.
Yep, exactly.
Who's that Pokemon?
Right, and it makes sense that, before we got the whole thing of Ebisu having the masks and whatnot.
Yeah.
It made sense that a god would come up and be like, hey, I'm a god of fortune, so, hey, if you need money, clearly.
Yep.
I need an Imperial Regalia. I don't have one and I would like one. They're rare, so what do you say?
I will throw money at you until you say yes.
Right, and given the fact that a lot of gods will have multiple Regalia, that's something that I could see happening a lot more often, right? Because it's it's more of a business arrangement, we're not, it's not the same kind of tight-knit family that Yato and Yukine and Hiyori have going on.
Yeah.
So, cool. Yeah. But then it brings up that whole conflict of, we do need money.
We do need it. And it is not just because he wants to have a shrine, just because it legitimizes him as a god. It is something that is tied deeply to his desire to be needed and wanted from when he was a kid.
Yep.
And this is huge, y'all. Because one of the things that's really strong about Yato specifically is that he is a walking contradiction of a character.
Yes.
There are so many things about him that contrast with, one other side of him. Right. So in this case here, the fact that this moved him from Hiyori so much is that it threw him back to his childhood desire and dream to actually have someone build a shrine for him. And even though this wasn't the shrine he envisioned, he would have been happy with just this one even back then as a kid. But now, after probably centuries and centuries of time without ever having that happen, someone finally did it
deferred
to him.
And all that.
And it's like, all that feeling just rushes over him, and of course he cries out. It's really good.
There are elements of this show that on paper, if I were to show this show to someone, would seem, I think, fairly standard.
Cliche.
Cliche. We've got people with powers, and one of them's in high school, and they've got to fight monsters, fight supernatural monsters while going about their day-to-day life and all that stuff, and hijinks and adventures, and isn't it great, right? And a person that turns into a weapon, awesome, cool. But especially with Hiyori, because Hiyori as a character and the function that she serves in the story, other than being sort of the normal person, that's the audience perspective into all the weird stuff that happens. She is also the heart of the show, and it is fairly common for there to be that main female lead that basically just says, MC-kun, MC-kun, you know, I'm the hopeful, optimistic, emotional core of this narrative because someone has to have
Someone
emotions, you know, right, exactly. But they don't have much more to them than that, and it can make it feel kind of cheap or tacked on.
But
for
not
me.
here.
Not here.
No.
Oh my God. Like, yes, this is the kind of stuff where it's like, we don't need plot stuff. The plot stuff is amazing. Like,
yeah, the plot stuff really advances a lot of the dynamics of the characters towards like legitimate growth that is solid and is built upon in multiple ways.
Absolutely.
So
and incredibly entertaining in its own right.
Right. So seeing Yukine do this stuff with Yato after realizing how he wants to protect Yato, after having all of this journey with him to where like you remember where they started off, right? All the steps that they've taken to get to this point. And it's only been like, 15, 20 episodes or something like that.
Not that long.
So not that long. And then, y'all, this is really good. And then for Hiyori to be able to do this, this is something where she understands Yato in a way that will reinforce the idea that it would be a shame to have these two end up getting separated over something like a dumb promise that Yato made. Now, he shouldn't be making promises like that. But if you can find a way to smooth things over with Tenjin, then you should, because I could see this being a thing of where it's like, Yato, maybe like they need to remind him of like gods have to like follow their word or something.
Sure.
And it's like, I can bring in like people that will make you do this.
Right. Now that was an under the table deal, so
Yes.
But
still.
yeah. And now hopefully he would be able to show Tenjin that, hey, basically I'm willing to do that if it's needed, but I think
I can convince you to let
convince
me go
you and
this.
I that this is a good thing that's going on, right? There are risks and things that come about as a result of this, but Hiyori's okay with them, I'm okay with them, and they're not causing the masses, much trouble.
No, so see, that's the issue, is that he was saying that it has nothing to do with you two. It's the idea that your presence on this side, basically, Yato's involved you too much with the far shore. This is basically the issue of where gods shouldn't mingle this much with humans.
Right. It's the classic
attachments is dangerous.
Attachments is dangerous, and if you have a very powerful entity like a god, for instance, would it actually be in the best interests of just people in general that they actually stay far away for the purposes of not, disrupting things overly much.
Yeah, I think Tenjin being a god, that I think his thing is wisdom, right?
I don't remember.
Or it was something about like learning, or I'll have to go back and check and stuff, like knowledge or something. But I think what it is that Tenjin is right here.
Yes.
And that Yato being involved with the far shore upsets probably some kind of balance with regards to the fact that, well, if humans can get to a god emotionally, then they could end up basically getting like blighted or something via the attachments or what have you. And
all kinds of bad stuff could happen.
Yeah, exactly. Because there's a balancing act that needs to be had with phantoms and then the spirit world and then humans in general, or just living humans.
And it's
that's it. That's it.
But yeah, and it's the age-old dilemma question of, hey, connections can hurt you and others, right? So what's the balance? Is it worth having the connection, right?
Yeah.
That's generally what I would say people consider to be a healthy relationship, is when, not when it's perfect, but when it's worth the pain, the struggles, and all the complications that come with being really closely connected with someone like that. In this situation, there's actual literal world mechanics behind what's happening, right? It's not just an emotional connection, it's a physical and spiritual connection, right?
Right.
So naturally, you have another god that's been around the block a few times, right? And he's like, hey, this is something that could cause a lot of trouble. Right.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
It's worth the trouble, so damn it, it's not going anywhere. And this is the kind of thing where I feel like at the beginning of most of the arcs in Noragami, there's been like okay, let's set up the conflict within the plot side of things, but then also let's set up what the emotional like conflict for the arc is going to be, right? Because those two tend to kind of go in parallel. And in this one, it's you still haven't, returned Hiyori to normal.
Yep.
That is something that you kind of said you'd do.
But now she's saying, I want to stay close to you.
Right.
So
someone's going to have to make a choice.
Someone's going to have to make a choice there.
Right.
Exactly.
Whether it's Yato of, am I going to, keep this connection going or not? Or Hiyori of what do I want to be? Because I could see a potential future where she decides that she actually wants to become a regalia. Now, she's still living, so that's
not really possible.
That's not really possible. And I'm sure she doesn't want to, leave her family and all of that stuff. But the idea that she does not want to give up Yato. So if push does come to shove, what's she going to do?
Tough decision.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's probably not going to reach a definitive one way or another conclusion this arc, because keeping that tension is
it's important. It's part important. Of the overall narrative is that these three characters need to have their character dynamics.
Yeah, because
the ones that continue to have them being involved. That's why the whole issue with the memory loss thing from the not canon to the manga, arc was in season 1. Is that puts too hard of a borderline, if you will, between these characters. Now, borderlines or just any kind of division in general between them, that's just going to happen on the daily.
Yeah.
Because, Yato's a baka, Hiyori is like kind of, shy and nervous at times, and Yukine is still young and growing up and stuff.
Right, exactly.
So they all have their ways of progression in this, but having outside conflict that forces each of them to respond in a way that is maybe not going to be leading them on the same path can bring about some very, very good drama.
Yes, indeed.
And that does seem to be the formula for Noragami as a whole.
It's a good one.
Is a good one. Is that you basically use the environment that these characters are playing in, but they all have different roles in that environment. Thus, they cannot respond exactly the same way.
Right.
And they also have differing personalities by a mile. So, of course, they will also respond a different way in that. And then they have to resolve that through their relationships.
One of the things that I also am really glad the show brought up, but more specifically Yukine brought up, is Yato. Let's talk about Nora. Let's talk about that ex that you still have, like, on speed dial. Like, what's...
Well, he hasn't contacted her.
Right.
But
well, he hasn't contacted her recently. But but the thing is, recently in human years is very different than recently in God years, right?
Nice. Good,
if
good
Yato's
point.
been around for centuries, even if he hasn't contacted her in like 3 years, that's, oh yeah, last weekend, like that's
sure.
Like that's basically the kind of time frame we're working with.
Yeah, like
so,
a couple months ago.
Yeah, so Yato, what is your connection to Nora? Because there still is one, right? And in the same way that Hiyori will have to make a choice at some point of, what does she want to do with the whole thing of being human and, also being a part of this vibrant world.
Right.
You will also have to make a decision of, are you really going to keep that tie to your past? Or do you want to truly become someone new?
Yeah. We'll see.
Yep.
We learned a couple new things about the world regarding the idea of a guiding voice being something that ends up getting relegated to the regalia that the god is closest to.
Right.
But if there is
just only
one regalia, then they don't really have much choice. However, they still need to have a good relationship in order for this kind of thing to happen. But that makes a lot of the stuff that happened in season 1 with regards to Yukine being the only regalia of Yato and losing his way nearly made Yato lose his way. So this is a kind of a repetition of that theme, that issue with the relationships being the core dynamic of the story. And Yukine, you just experienced a really cool moment that bonded you two together in a really strong way. But it might be good then to iron it out for yourself.
Right.
What's a way in which you can protect Yato and then he can then come to rely on you in that way? because then you'll be covering up for a weakness of his, a tendency of his, a bad habit of some kind. And he thinks to the greed aspect, but he also thinks to Nora.
And having that be brought up is something that I really appreciate, because as far as the characters in this show, the main three, right? Yato and Hiyori, their conflicts are a lot more straightforward.
Yes.
Right? Yukine's, I feel like, is a bit more complicated, because he's so closely tied to Yato as far as the mechanics of the world and everything, right? So since he is essentially, he's often serving Yato, right? He's his weapon. He's wielded by him. Where does Yukine get agency in the story, right? How does he actually grow? Yes, there's the whole thing of studying with Hiyori and all that stuff, and it's great.
Right.
But what are some ways that we can actually see him truly be himself in a way that only he can?
Enact his will.
Right.
Here we go. This is an option for that.
And putting this kind of responsibility on him, where he's, he's one, young, two, he's new to being a regalia.
But still, he's accomplished. He's actually got a relationship with Yato that's strong and building even stronger. So,
and he's starting to take the initiative and do some things that even Yato isn't capable of doing. Because, yes, Yato, he has his moments.
He really wants that shrine.
But he is irresponsible.
Yeah.
Right? In when rubber meets the road, for sure, he'll pull through.
Right.
But during the more calm times,
when things are easy,
when things are easy, Yukine can really help out there, and we saw that happen here. So yeah,
pull him out of the trash bin, basically.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or at the very least, kick over the trash bin and roll it down the road, so he's going somewhere. Yeah.
I loved Kuro's little moment of just showing him the art with Kofuku. That was wonderful.
That was excellent. The part where he's just tears streaming down his face. That was great.
Yukine, you're so young, but look at you. Oh, it's amazing. And then also just being happy that they're back. And we were thinking he's been chasing after Kofuku. He's like, get back here, And then when he hugs them, it's like, okay, yeah, he misses them too.
Yep.
The shrine bit was phenomenal. I think the last thing I want to bring up is the idea of the gods having the colloquy. I believe that's how.
So the colloquy
or something like that. Yeah, I believe that's how you pronounce it. But having this little round robin discussion here regarding the fact that the masked ones are a problem on their scale of things, and that there is a possibility that there is someone out there that shouldn't exist, which was Vina or Bishamon's little thing there,
which makes me think it would be Nora's dad.
Right, but then Ebisu is shown to be the one that has a bunch of masks by his desk,
right.
So he has no issue showing this to his regalia or something.
Maybe it's something where he's just... Oh, go for it.
No, keep going.
Well, I could see it maybe being something where he doesn't have a problem working with a Nora, right? Because even in his offer to Yato of hey, what if we did sort of a share deal on Yukine, that would turn Yukine into a Nora, right?
Yeah, I think that's just more hints that he's actually working with Nora.
Sure.
Even if he's not her father.
But because it's been established that it's not too uncommon for gods to use Noras for more of their less than savory acts that they wouldn't want their own regalia to do, I wouldn't be surprised if he was still more of the puppet.
Possibly.
Now having a god be the puppet of a regalia,
or maybe even another god. It doesn't have to be a thing.
That is a great point.
It doesn't have to be a thing that's that way, because they just walked in, a whole bunch of them, as gods, basically.
Yeah,
so
that's
they were
true.
all the 7 gods of fortune or what have you. It was like, oh, yeah, they're all here. These are all just gods. All right. And then Ebisu's there. I didn't even notice that was him.
Yeah, he was there and then
boop, gone. To where I was like, oh, is that him?
Right.
But then it is him when we end up seeing him show up at Yatsu's place with the card and the pile of money.
Yep.
I really want his deal to be something, though, where it's the tie into a much larger conflict about gods and how gods can get corrupted. And there was a commentary, a little bit of a note that I thought that was interesting. Yato brought up the idea about how it's like, oh, it's money this, money that. All you people care about is money. And I'm like, all right, cool. Yes, that's some good little stuff here. But like, that's an interesting point to bring up, is he thinks that all the reasons why the regalia split off from him was money related. Now, I'm going to assume he's just telling the truth as far as he sees it.
Sure.
But I do find it kind of interesting that if this has happened many times, every time it was about money. And also just the idea that, is that actually something that they could be getting into just in general as a theme, is the idea of how easily corrupted actually godlike beings like gods and then regalia are.
Sure.
And that Ebisu is not like pure evil or whatever. Like, he's not blighted as far as we can see. It's just, no. I have dirty means that I do things with. And like you're saying, he just uses Nora. Yep. Like, it doesn't have to be our Nora that we've come to know. It's just he uses Nora's.
Right. It's the
in general.
Yeah. It's the there's a place for Noras in society. You don't necessarily invite him to the dinner table, but yeah.
Right.
I'm curious how things are gonna be explored with him as a character, because with the way that he presented himself when he was interacting with Yato, and from what we see in the OP, his design gives me that sense of like, I'm a businessman kind of a thing, right? Which communicates to me that it's impersonal. Right, exactly. So even if he does some things that makes him antagonistic to Yato and everybody, right? Like working with Nora or whatever his connection to Nora is, right? It doesn't seem to have the same amount of gravitas impact to it that I would expect the villains of these arcs that we've had recently to have. So, but I could totally be wrong there, right? But that just makes me, I'm really curious to see what his interactions with Nora are, especially if he's not her dad, right?
Yeah.
Because then when they talk, because with Kugaha, it was very much a thing of like, hey, I can get you the thing you want, and you're making a little deal with the devil here.
Yeah.
And we knew it probably wasn't going to end up well. But with Ebisu, I don't know.
Yeah, it feels like the tie-in to a middle manager in a faction, introducing our main characters to the larger conflict.
Right,
and I'm
exactly.
like, ooh, Ebisu, you're that middle manager guy that's just really competent.
Yeah,
and so you end
interesting,
up being the face
competent
of specific
character.
Things, but you are not.
You're not the main threat.
You're not the main problem.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's why I think the Bishamon stuff is actually way more important in the grand scheme, because it was the fact that one of the gods in the group was very quick to get defensive about are you saying that one of us named Kugaha? And she's like, I'm not saying that at all. It's kind of like one of those things where you're playing Among Us and someone's like, I wasn't anywhere near the body. It's like, no one said you were. Like,
right. Exactly.
Sus. Yeah. Acting kind of sus there.
Now, there was the thing that the gods mentioned of that allegedly there was a god of poverty or whatever that was using Ebisu's name.
Yeah. Is that just Kofuku?
Maybe?
I have to go back and check, but like...
Yeah, is she like camped out in an Ebisu shrine? I'm not sure.
I don't think so necessarily.
Because I don't think there would be any shrine to a goddess of misfortune. There's literally
one character who we know is masking herself as a god of fortune when she is actually a god of poverty.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So that's probably what it is.
Probably just her.
Yeah. It was probably just a nod joke,
Yes.
While I'm being like, wait, is there actually another character? Is that actually who Nora's dad is?
But I think that's why her and Yato are friends, is that they recognize fakes recognizing each other.
Yeah, they're both kind of bumming off of other gods. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, hence why, they just have the one regalia in Kofuku's case. But then in Yato's case, he's only ever had probably one regalia at a time.
Yep.
If we're not counting Nora.
Right.
No one counts Nora.
No, definitely not. Definitely not.
Okay.
Delete her number, Yato.
Cool start to a new arc of the story. I hope things go well with Hiyori and Yato's.
It will. After this, are you kidding me? Like,
I know.
Okay, if anybody tries to become between Hiyori and Yato and Yukine at this point, after that shrine,
borderline them, yeah.
Borderline and head from shoulders,
full on transformation sequence.
Yep.
Highlight animation.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, seriously. So, y'all, thank you so much for watching this episode reaction and discussion. If you want to see the next episode's reaction and discussion right now, though, go check out the link in the description below for our Patreon. You can get an early access there. You can watch full-length timer reactions there, and all this comes with Discord access, so you can chat with us and the community there about this show, about anime in general, and also be sure to check out our Twitch channel.
Yes. So most of the information and all that stuff is in the description. Check it out. But for the gaming stuff, Caleb, you're playing...
I'm playing Cyberpunk 2077.
Yes, and then I'm playing Persona 4 Golden.
Yes, if any of that interests you, we'll see you there. But until then, we're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we'll see you all next time.